Genesis 3, Genesis chapter 3, American Standard Version. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Jehovah God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yah hath God said, Ye shall not eat of any tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, Of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doeth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as God, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and she gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of Jehovah God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Jehovah God amongst the trees of the garden. Jehovah God called unto the man and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I hear thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I command thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And Jehovah God said unto the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And Jehovah God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, cursed art thou above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thee seed and her seed. He shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy pain, and thou's conception. In pain thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In toil shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorn also and thistle shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And the man called his wife name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. And Jehovah made for Adam and for his wife coats of skin, and clothed them. And Jehovah God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore Jehovah God sent him forth from the garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the garden of Eden the cherubim and the flame of the sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Explain this. You're in you're in Genesis 3, the Bible, Why the World is the Way It Is chapter. It explains sin, shame, fracture, death, and crucially, the first hint of redemption. If Genesis 1 and 2 is creation as temple gardens, Genesis 3 is rebellion in the sanctuary. Here is what God is saying at a PhD level theological depth. The serpent's strategy distrusts God's goodness, then rewrite God's words. Ye hath God said, ye shall not surely die. The serpent is subtle, crafty. Not notice the progression. Distort God's generosity. The serpent frames God's command as a harsh restriction. Any tree, when God has said the opposite. Every tree freely except one. Get to the human to revise God's command. The woman answered mostly correctly, but add, neither shall ye touch it. That addition singles how deception often works. God's words gets tightened or blurred, and once it's fuzzy, it's easier to distrust. Directly contradicted God. Ye shall not surely die. This is the first outright denial of God's truthfulness. Attack God's character. God knows you'll be as God. The serpent implies God is withholding life, like a competitor protecting status. What God is showing you is temptations rarely do evil because evil is fun. It's usually God is holding out, taking autonomy, define reality yourself. The core sin, grasping moral sovereignty, to be as God. Your eyes shall be open as God, knowing good and evil. Knowing good and evil here is not just moral awareness, it's a claim to moral authorship. Deciding for yourself what is good, rather than receiving good from God. The woman sees the tree as good for food, appetite, delight to the eye, and aesthetic desire. Desire to make one wise, status, and self-exalting wisdom. That triumph is this classic autonomy of sin, bodily desire, visual desire, and prideful desire for self-determination. And Adam is with her, yet silent. Then he eats. The narrative quietly indicates passivity as part of the fall. What God is saying, the rupture begins when human stops living as an image bearer under God and starts trying to live as God without God. Their eyes were open. Sin produced shame, not glory. They knew that they were naked, sewed fig leaves. The separate promised enlightenment. They do gain a kind of a knowledge, but it's the knowledge of exposure, vulnerability, and self-protection. Nakedness was previously not ashamed. Now it becomes threatening. The first human invention is not art or architecture, it's covering, a symbol of how sin makes us manage appearance, hide, perform, and fear, be truly known. What God is saying, autonomy does not liberate, it fractures the self. Shame is the psychology, spiritual echo of broken communion. God approach. Judgment begins with pursuit. Where art thou? God walks in the garden. Humans hide. God questions is not for information. It's a summon. Come out. Face reality. Return. Then the chain of fallout. Fear replaced trust. I was afraid. Blame replaced ownership. The women gave me. Suspicion towards God replaced love. The women who thou gavest. This is huge. Sin doesn't just break rules. It breaks relationship in every direction. With God, hiding. Within the self, shame/fear. Between humans, blame/control. With creation, curse on ground. Well, God is saying, I will not pretend your rebellion didn't happen, but I will not abandon you to hiding. The judgment, not random punishment, but consequences that match the crime. God's words expose that sin does. God's words expose what sin does to the spheres of life. The separate enmity between thy seed and her seed, bruised head/bruised healed. This is a famous verse, often called the Proto-Evangelium, first gospel in Christian theology. At minimum, the text established a permanent conflict between evil and humanity, but it also hints at a decisive victory. The serpent strikes the heel, real injury. The woman's seed strikes the head, moral defeat. Christian reading, this is anticipated a future delivering ultimately fulfilled in Christ, wounded yet victorious over the evil ones. Jewish readings, it describes the ongoing moral/spiritual conflict between humanity and the forces of deception, with hope that evil will not have the final word. Either way, the point is clear. What God is saying, evil will be opposed and evil will not win forever. The woman, pain and childbearing, desire, and he shall rule over thee. Two dominoes central to human flourishing are now marked by struggle. Fruitfulness becomes painful. Marriage becomes contested. Desire here is often understood as a turning of relational dynamics towards tension. Desire that can become grasping slash control, and he shall rule, singles a distortion into domination. This is not presented as the ideal. It's the tragic deformation of what was help corresponding to him. What God is saying, sin doesn't erase human bonds, it warps them, especially in love, family, and power. The man and the ground, cursed is the ground, toil, thorns, sweat, return to dust. Work was a calling in Eden. Now work becomes frustration. Nature resists. The world becomes thorns and thistles. Creation isn't evil, but it's no longer effortless cooperative. And death is named. Dust thou art, unto dust shalt thou return. Death enters as both consequences, and sign separations from the source of life ends in dissolution. What God is saying, rejection my life order doesn't only damage your soul, it destabilizes your entire world, labor, land, body, and future. Mercy incites judgment, Eve's name plus clothing. Right after death is announced, Adam names his wife Eve, mother of all living. This is a strange, hope-filled act in the shadow of death. Life is still promised. Then God makes coats of skin and clothes them. God replaces their flimsy self-covering with a durable covering. It's a picture of grace. God provides what they cannot properly provide for themselves. Many Christian theologians also see it foreshadowing of sacrifice, substitute life given so the guilty may be covered, though Genesis itself keeps it implicit. What God is saying, I judge sin truly, but I also cover shame and preserve life. The exile, not only punishment, also protection, lest he take tree of life and live forever. This is profound. Living forever in a fallen state would mean endless corruption. Exile is severe, but also merciful. God bars the way to the tree of life, so humanity does not become immortal in ruin. The cherubim and flaming sword echoes later temple imagery. Scared space is guarded. Eden was like a sanctuary. Sin makes direct access impossible. What God is saying, separation is real, but it's not the end of the story. The way back to life will require God's own provision. The deepest what God is trying to say in Genesis 3, sin is fundamentally mistrust of God, goodness, and a grab for godlike autonomy. The immediate fruit of sin is shame, fear, hiding, and blame, not freedom. God's justice names reality. God's mercy pursues, covers, and preserves. History becomes a conflict between deception and deliverance, seed versus shepherd, serpent. There you go. The gate to life is closed for now, but the story is moving towards a reopened way. That is Genesis 3. And I'll record the next one right now.